Order! Order in the court! It's time to render my verdict. In the case of Bandana Dee versus Smash Brothers, I rule that Bandana Dee is not fit for Smash.
Objection!
There really is nothing quite like the reveal of a brand new Super Smash Bros. Character. Even though Super Smash Bros. Ultimate now boasts over 80 of them, the unveiling of a new one never feels like any less of an event. To the outsider, the constant speculation and heated debates over the inclusion of an individual character among dozens might seem ridiculous, but us fans know why it's such a big deal. The Smash Bros. Roster is essentially the video game character Hall of Fame. Each and every fighter has a reason for being on it. That's why there are so many very strong and very different opinions surrounding who does and doesn't deserve the prestigious status of a Smash fighter. Now, enter GameXplain, a YouTube channel run by a team of guys who make all sorts of gaming-related content. Reviews, discussions, analyses, and lots of miscellaneous kinds of videos. One of which being a series of animated segments where two members have a courtroom-style argument over whether or not a certain character should be playable in the then-upcoming Smash Ultimate. They did this for 3 different characters: Captain Toad, Ridley, and of course, Bandana Dee, the only one they deemed unworthy of having a spot on the roster. Now, before I go any further with this, I should clarify that I'm a huge fan of the GameXplain crew, and mean no ill will towards them. They're all awesome people who do great work and are, quite honestly, my biggest inspiration for starting up this channel. But with all that said, the argument Ash made against Bandana Dee's inclusion, it wasn't the best. And based on the overall response to that video, I wasn't alone in that opinion. Now, to be fair, they have since said that these videos were made largely in jest, and the cases they made against these characters weren't meant to be taken too seriously. But to that, I say this. While, yes, the arguments made against Captain Toad and Ridley also weren't very well constructed, the Honorable Judge Hand ruled in favor of those two, unlike Bandana Dee. So I thought it would be fun to put this issue to bed for good and offer my official rebuttal to Ash's argument, one that goes a little bit more in depth than Derek's did. For a while, it seemed like the Fighters Pass characters would be exclusively third-party ones. But, thanks to the inclusion of both Baileydw and Min Min, Nintendo-owned characters such as Bandana Dee are officially back on the table as potential DLC candidates. You hear that, my stubby-armed, spear-wielding friend? Today is your lucky day because you've got yourself a new attorney. I will be taking on your case once more to deliver you the swift justice you were so bitterly denied. You can just send my check in the mail.
I'll start by highlighting the obvious. You wouldn't make a Goomba playable in Smash. Why a Waddle Dee? That was a rhetorical question, by the way. Prosecutor, the fact that you couldn't even introduce the subject without first explaining that he's just one of thousands, no, perhaps millions, of Kirby's most basic, generic, low-level enemy says it all. You already admitted it yourself when you said that Waddle Dees are, and I quote, basically the Goombas of Kirby games.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. The argument that a generic enemy can't make it into Smash has been all but shattered by the inclusion of Piranha Plant. And you would be correct. The playable Piranha Plant in Ultimate is simply one out of an entire legion of lookalikes. Now, on one hand, bringing up Piranha Plant isn't completely fair, since this video was made far before that character was revealed for the game. But on the other hand, he isn't the only instance of a single, nondescript member of his species joining the Smash roster. Exhibit A, Yoshi. Sure, he's technically been established as his own character, separate from the rest of his clan, but when it comes to looks, there's really nothing to set him apart. Exhibit B, every Pokemon that isn't Mewtwo. These guys are in Smash to represent their respective species, but don't have any actual traits unique to them. Bandana Dee, on the other hand, does have qualities that aren't found in any other Waddle Dee. He's the only one who's ever wielded a spear, and he's joined Kirby for the majority of his recent adventures.
I'd like to call the court's attention to a particular sentence in your argument. All he had to do was pick up a spear. Your words, prosecutor, not mine. That's literally all he had to do. Unless you're saying that's all it takes to make it into Smash as a playable character these days. Picking up a spear and putting on a bandana? Tossing items to Kirby in a cameo appearance? Have we really fallen so far?
Claiming that picking up a spear and tossing items to Kirby are all Mr. D has going for him is selling him criminally short. This little guy might look unassuming, but he is indeed his own character with his own personality who has slowly but surely risen to prominence as a core member of the Kirby cast. Waddle Dees are traditionally defined as peaceful, lazy creatures, but our bandana-wearing friend here could not be further from that. This particular Waddle Dee has been canonically described as courageous, fiercely loyal to his friends, and never willing to shy away from a fight. Recent games, such as Kirby Battle Royale, have given him further personality quirks, such as a love of food that rivals Kirby's. He even has his own song, which, when translated into English, reveals his determination to prove himself as a strong warrior. He might have started small in Kirby Superstar, making cameos as an opponent in the Megaton Punch minigame and as the sole audience member for King Dedede's boss fight in the DS remake, but he would get his big break in Return to Dreamland as a playable character alongside Meta Knight, Dedede, and the Pink Puff himself. Sure, his only role in Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot was simply to toss items to Kirby, but he would be back in the spotlight in a big way for both Kirby and the Rainbow Curse and Battle Royale as Kirby's main companion, and in the case of Rainbow Curse, Dedede and Meta Knight were nowhere to be seen. And finally, Bandana Dee's steady increase in prominence earned him the prestigious status of Dream Friend in the series' most recent entry, Star Allies. His description literally reads, "He deserves a prize for his stellar attendance in the Kirby series." If that doesn't make a character Smash-worthy, I don't know what does.
Furthermore, you're saying a lot about how Bandana Waddle Dee has risen to prominence over the course of the series. He's so prominent, in fact, that he didn't even make it onto the box art for the most recent game in the series, Kirby Star Allies. Sure, an apparition of him appears in the game as a dream friend, but that's not even him in the flesh, and it's a completely optional minor role compared to the actual Star Allies Kirby journeys with. If that's how Kirby treats quote-unquote one of his closest friends, remind me never to become his enemy. Kirby's Return to Dreamland came out in 2011. Playable Bandana Waddle Dee is so 7 years ago.
So, if anything, the fact that Dream Friends are rare is an indication of their status as special, one-of-a-kind characters, as opposed to the nondescript enemies Kirby can come across within any level. Also, I don't recall any confirmation of the Dream Friend characters not being the real deal. But what I really want to talk about is Ash's box art argument, because, really, since when has a character's absence from their game's box art been an indicator of their importance or lack thereof? In case you haven't noticed, Luigi is nowhere to be seen in half of the mainline Mario games box arts. Same goes for Zelda, and sometimes even Link, and I don't see anyone questioning the prominence of those characters in their respective series. Furthermore, we don't see any Dream Friends on the Star Allies box art, only standard enemies, once again demonstrating how Bandana Dee's status has elevated far beyond a, quote, Goomba with a hat. And even though he doesn't appear on a lot of box art, he can be found in countless amounts of promotional material, as well as the title screen for Kirby's Dream Collection, a game that literally celebrates the series' history. To me, this is a far better indicator of Bandana Dee's status as one of Kirby's main co-stars than any one piece of box art.
That yoga instructor you just brushed off so disrespectfully just now, Prosecutor, does in fact appear on the Japanese and European box art for Wii Fit and Wii Fit Plus. And not only that, like it or not, that same yoga instructor is the star of one of Nintendo's most prolific franchises. Wii Fit and Wii Fit Plus together have sold through almost 44 million copies to date, a number that would make any Waddle Dee, bandana wearing or not, cower in shame. And while it's true that you don't have to headline a multi-million selling game to make the cut for Smash, suggesting that Bandana Waddle Dee is anywhere near equal in relevance to Wii Fit Trainer, or anything other than a Goomba, is simply preposterous.
Well, by that logic, Samus is nowhere near as beloved as the Wii Fit Trainer since the Metroid series' total sales is less than half that number, and Sticker Star must be the best Paper Mario game since it sold the best. I think just about everybody knows that raw sales numbers are not an accurate way of measuring the overall quality or popularity of any given game or franchise. Also, people didn't buy Wii Fit because the trainer herself was in any way a compelling character. Wii Fit Trainer is in Smash to represent her game as a whole, which was undeniably a phenomenon. Comparing her to Bandana Dee makes no sense because his inclusion in Smash would be for an entirely different reason. He wouldn't embody any one game or series, he would stand on his own as an actual character.
Hold it! While you raise a fair point about how ridiculous it is that Smash's roster still doesn't have any spear wielders, Fire Emblem or not, that's kind of stating the obvious. There certainly is room for one, and I never argued there wasn't. I'm simply challenging your assertion that this role can and should be filled by just anyone. Sure, Bandana Waddle Dee has a spear, but so do other far more deserving Nintendo characters, and you don't even need to dip your toes back into the Fire Emblem pool to find them. The Zelda series, for example, has the Hyrule Warriors incarnation of Impa with her Naginata, as well as Mipha from the recent Breath of the Wild. Even Star Fox's Crystal, as unpopular as she is in some circles, wields a staff with a pointed end which may as well be a spear. And yet you would still argue that a basic Goomba... Waddle Dee, who decided to pick up a spear and put on a bandana that morning, is more deserving of a spot in Smash's roster than any of the 3 completely unique characters I just cited, then why don't we just throw in all of Paper Mario's partners too? By your logic, Bo would be an especially perfect fit for Smash as a generic Boo who, wait for it, wears bows and carries a fan.
I agree that Bandana Dee isn't the only deserving spear-wielding character out there, but I've already been over all the reasons for why he does indeed deserve to join Smash. The fact that he happens to use a spear just means there's something to set him apart from other fighters. And as for the Paper Mario partners, what about them? They too are their own characters with their own designs and personalities. I'm sure plenty of people would be happy if one of them made the cut. But these guys only ever appeared in one game, never catching on as series mainstays, unlike my client here.
It seems you expect me, this court, and our honorable Judge Hand here to abide your argument for Bandana Waddle Dee as a completely unique, fleshed-out, Smash-ready version of a generic character, even though you yourself just conflated him and his potential moves with Parasol Waddle Dee, who most certainly is not just another generic Waddle Dee that just happens to be carrying a parasol. In case you couldn't tell, Your Honor, that was sarcasm.
Let's keep it clean, defense.
My apologies, Your Honor. But how many Waddle Dees does it take to construct a complete moveset for Smash? More than just one, clearly.
The spear would naturally fill out the rest of his moves.
Doesn't cut it in this court, prosecutor.
The concept of a Smash fighter drawing inspiration from different characters for their moveset is hardly a new one. Just take a look at Zelda. The spells she uses for her specials were only ever used in Ocarina of Time by Link. Not her. PK Flash is the only special Ness and Lucas actually used in their own games. The rest of them were taken from different party members. Wolf never drove a Landmaster before Brawl. Simon has attacks only ever used before by Richter and vice versa, and I don't recall the Koopalings ever being able to turn into Shadow Mario before. And how about characters like Captain Falcon and Fox, who had completely new moves invented for them? So, no, I don't see any problem with having Bandana Dee utilize a parasol for a handful of attacks, perhaps his aerials. And the thing is, this is all a moot point anyways, because in Kirby Battle Royale, he did fight with a parasol, so there's no reason at all for him not to use one in Smash.
The prosecution has made the claim that Waddle Dees are quote-unquote iconic, which the defense believes is a strong word. If it pleases you, Your Honor, I have a question for the court.
Proceed, defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the court, I ask simply this. Is it mere coincidence that, of all of King Dedede's special moves in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, the only 2 that were completely replaced in the transition to Smash 4 were the ones featuring Waddle Dees? Let's break it down. In Brawl, Dedede's side special was the Waddle Dee toss, where he would throw Waddle Dees at enemies with the occasional extra damaging Gordo tossed in for good measure. And what did Smash 4 replace that with? The Gordo toss. Smash 4 literally took out only the Waddle Dees from a move named after Waddle Dees. But wait, there's more. Dedede's final smash in Brawl, Waddle Dee Army, was widely considered to be so ineffectual and worthless that it too was replaced by a new final smash called Dedede Burst, which, you guessed it, has nothing to do with Waddle Dees. Clearly, even the king himself knows Waddle Dees have no place on Smash's battlefields, pun not intended. Regardless, I rest my case, Your Honor.
I can guarantee you that Waddle Dees getting replaced by Gordos in Smash 4 had nothing to do with their lack of importance within the Kirby series, and everything to do with maintaining a stable frame rate for the 3DS version. In Brawl, the Waddle Dees would stick around for a little while after being thrown. Think about how many character models would be on the screen if 4 Dededes used that move at once. It would have put a strain on the game's performance that the 3DS definitely would not have been able to handle. It's the same reason why the Ice Climbers were cut from the game after all. So, that covers it for my response to GameXplain's video, but I've still got a few points of my own I'd like to make. You see, Sakurai and his team don't decide which characters to add based on any kind of arbitrary quota that needs to be filled. It doesn't even have to do with whether or not a character makes any sense in a fighting environment, because when has that ever stopped them before? In a time where the Smash roster consists of 81 characters and counting, the biggest determining factor is whether or not any given fighter will bring something new and different to the table. Some kind of gameplay quirk that will set them apart from all, or at least most, of the rest of the cast. And that's been the case with every Fighter's Pass character so far, whether it be Joker's Rebellion Engage, Hero's Arsenal of Spells, Banjo-Kazooie's Wonder Wing, Terry's command inputs, Violet's tether recovery, and Min Min's ability to control her arms independently of one another. So the question is, what would Bandana Dee offer beyond being the first dedicated spear user on the roster? Well, I happen to have an idea. Kirby's Star Allies allowed you to mix and match weapon-based copy abilities with element-based ones. For example, add fire to sword and it becomes Sizzle Sword. Combine ice with hammer to make Blizzard Hammer, and so on. So, what if Bandana Dee could add different elemental properties to his spear to upgrade his attacks? I'm thinking they would function the same as Shulk's Monado arts, where they could be cycled through and only last for a certain amount of time before needing to be recharged. Sizzle Spear would leave behind a trail of flames that lingers on the stage for a short period of time, Bluster would give his attacks more knockback, Blizzard would freeze opponents when a smash attack is fully charged, Zap would briefly stun opponents in place, and Splash would create an extension to his spear to give him increased range. I'm pretty much picturing the waterbending arms from Avatar, but with a spear. Look, I'm no game designer, so there's a chance this kind of mechanic can make him completely broken. I'm just saying that the potential to make Bandana Dee a unique fighter is absolutely there. Another reason why this character would be such a good inclusion has to do with the overall way the Kirby series has been represented in Smash. You see, Kirby representation is pretty good, but it also kind of isn't. There are 3 playable characters and a whole bunch of stages and music tracks, but almost all of them are taken from the same pool of games. For those who don't know, Masahiro Sakurai is the creator of not only Smash Bros., but Kirby as well. However, he stopped being involved in the development of Kirby games after 2003, and the games he worked on are the ones that get the most attention in the Smash Bros. Series. Now, this makes sense. Sakurai is only human, so of course he's going to have some bias towards his own work. But the thing is, Kirby has not only had plenty of games since he left the series, but plenty of great ones. But aside from Kirby's Final Smash and a handful of spirits and non-remixed music tracks, the more recent games have been largely ignored. The modern Kirby games are the ones that turned me into a fan of the series, and since Return to Dreamland was the game that gave Bandana Dee his status as a series mainstay, he would be the perfect character to represent this more modern era of Kirby. If he is indeed a part of the second Fighter's Pass, he would undoubtedly bring with him a stage based on either Return to Dreamland or Star Allies, as well as a bunch of new remixes from the series' more recent games. And the final point I want to make is this. At the end of the day, we all need to realize that any quote-unquote rules regarding which characters can and can't make it into Smash really aren't rules at all, just trends that Sakurai is fully capable of bucking whenever he wants to. Characters owned by other companies? That's ridiculous! Cloud has no chance. His legacy is with PlayStation, not Nintendo. And why does everybody keep asking for Banjo? Nintendo would never be able to use a character owned by a direct competitor. And there's just no way we could have any more than 4 Fire Emblem reps in one game. Okay, 5. Okay, 6. Okay, 7. Okay, 8. And Ridley? Come on, people, we've been over this. He's just too big. The only actual rule Sakurai has ever put in place is that the character needs to originate from gaming. But even so, there's nothing stopping him from changing his mind and throwing in SpongeBob or Shrek. So there you have it, my full rebuttal to Judge Hand's ruling. But before I go, there's one last thing I need to let you people over at GameXplain know, so you all better listen here, and listen good. John, a big fat congrats to you and your fiancée Roxy on the up-and-coming baby. I will now and forever dub you as Papa John.